Greetings, Minecrafters, and welcome to another discussion today, another Minecraft exciting discussion. My name is Dr. Kimberly Quinn, and my role here, and what I just get so excited about, what just charges my batteries, is helping people or assisting people, being the vehicle channel for helping people become the boss of their brains, to take control, be the boss of your thoughts, because as we know, thoughts come first and feelings come second, and therefore our thoughts dictate how we feel, which then dictate how we behave, and so changing our thoughts literally changes our lives. And so today is going to be a discussion on another discussion on the Fast Mind Club. And this is going to be tips for educators, okay? Tips for educators. So I was inspired by an article in ADHD. You know how much I like that electronic mag, okay? So that's capital A, capital D as an ADD, etude, right? And we do have tudes, definitely. So Josh and Melinda Boring. Yeah, I'm not saying they're boring. That is their last name, B-O-R-I-N-G. And so I'm going to guess that they are two really spicy badasses, because you'd have to be, to wear the name. I know I would be, for sure. Kind of spicy badass anyway, but you know what I mean? You have to wear it well. And so they came up with some tips. I'm just inspired by it. I'm going to paraphrase and make it our own, because as you know, I teach college. So they're really good because they kind of address the executive functioning, which is really important. So the very first one I'd like to say is that we should start out right out of the gate, letting our students know. I'm talking about, I teach college, but no matter whatever level of education it applies, is that this is a team effort. Because often, I think as I've mentioned, I have mostly first years, and I definitely get a splash of sophomores, juniors, and seniors, because Minecraft can be elective for others. It's required for our psych students, so I get mostly 18, 19-year-olds, and then some elective takers, okay? But right out of high school, they often have, and disclaimer, we've got a lot of good teachers out there. I'm not saying that, they're doing something wrong. It's maybe the perception that, oh no, the teachers wants to see me after class, reaching out to me. They often are like in this panic mode when they come to me, and it's, we have to kind of, take some deep breaths and realize that, in college we're trying to establish a relationship that's different. Eventually they might want to come talk about graduate school or references or internships or just an interesting article or whatever, and it's kind of a different thing than, the metaphorically the red pen talks, with the incorrect stuff, and it's just different. So it's important to establish that this is a team effort, which means we got to be on our game as far as executive functioning as the educators, and also teaching styles in general, right? Not just the Fast Mind Club. This particular talk is about the Fast Mind Club, but there are other differences that involve executive functioning, such as the autism spectrum, and there again, just learning style differences, auditory, visual, kinesthetic, whatever. But it's really important, and also on their end, okay, so we need to be aware and meet them where they are, that they need to be prepared for class. So even the little ones, and obviously that takes parental support and guidance, and for us, the young adults need to get that this is their education. I sometimes say this to them, that it's in a positive way. This is like such a gift, right? And you're not going to get this back in the same way. This is your learning experience. What you put in is what you're going to get out, and then some. So that they kind of in order to get the most out of the class, they need to be prepared. It's not just about the grades, right? So team thing. We're ready to meet them where they are, and they're ready to be met where they are, right? With them being prepared. And the communication thing. So in order for them to want to communicate, they've got to feel safe, in quotes, whatever that means. And so that's obviously going to look different with little kids and college students, but it's still the same base premise. Because they're probably, if they're not feeling safe, especially the little ones, aren't going to say, gee, I'm not feeling comfortable. They just won't speak. And not that different, I guess, with young adults. They just might, slowly slide away, slip through the cracks, and it's super important. And that doesn't mean necessarily, just declaring this is a safe environment, because that might be weird and awkward. We just have to do it. And sometimes I do it with humor and just, levity. Sometimes I put memes on announcements. And in person, I'm playful as a professor, very playful, so that things aren't always so serious. Learning's fun. It doesn't have to be so intense. Sometimes the topics are intense. Doesn't mean we need to be intense. We can have fun learning the high majority of the time. And it's really important. Next is to grab our attention. Attention and intention. And that might sound like a contradiction in terms for us ADHDers, fast minders. But our attention can be grabbed. It just takes a little bit of strategizing. And so this is how we have you earning your keep for the students, right? Because we keep you have to get your rollerblades greased and kind of, pay attention. Because our minds are moving at a clip, and it keeps paying attention, which is very good. Also, involving the whole student is huge, and I do verbalize this. And granted, I'm dealing with young adults, so you have to express this differently, or maybe just with your behavior, your actions as teaching younger kids. But that we're teaching the whole student, we're involving the whole student. And I actually do verbalize this day one, that when that student walks in, I'm usually in person, without the Rona happening, and even figuratively speaking in a Zoom class, that the whole student walks in there, which means, everything, how they've been raised, whether they've grown up in an urban environment, rural environment, suburban environment, where they're on the birth order, where they're an only child, a twin, never mind all the gamut of differences they could have had. They might have a sibling at home who has Down syndrome, maybe they were the oldest, who knows? They've got all kinds of dynamics going on. Then they bring their other stuff with them. Maybe they are dating somebody who's at home still, now it's a long-distance relationship, blah, 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 blah. You get the point. So it's not just their student self that's coming in. So I'm not trying to do the J-Beebs thing here. I just need a trim. Okay. So here they bring their whole selves in there if they're sad about something, and never mind the gamut of mental health issues, da-da-da-da-da. And with little kids, that's true in their worlds. They might have, one of their parents may have had to take the dog to the vet in the morning, even if it's something that wasn't that big a deal. They don't know that. They might be terrified. Their mind's not going to be in the classroom when they're worried about their dog, even if it's, like a run-of-the-mill thing. So it's important to remember that. And also, the fourth one, these are my words, there's a sweet spot for our attention. So this is where it gets tricky. So if you think it's tricky for you, be us for a day or a week and be in this, we like to say squirrel nest. Sometimes I think of bees on a honeycomb. Actually, I just used that picture for my Psychology Today article, because it's like bzzz, and then it's just always going in different directions and in and out like that. And there's a sweet spot. So we can be distracted in the classroom, or really anywhere, but let's say distracted in the classroom because there's so much lovely stimulation. There's shiny objects all over. And I'm thinking in a college classroom, because it is so exciting. You've got these young adults so enthusiastic and so intelligent, saying all kinds of great things. I mean, 2 days have not been the same since I started teaching 11 years ago. Love young adults, right? It's just great. So there's shiny objects everywhere, so we could be distracted, practically sitting on our hands, not to raise our hands. We just want to raise it the whole entire time. And then there's not being distracted enough, because our dopamine-deprived brains are really, sort of on the mad search for shiny objects when there aren't enough of them. So there's this window where we're really feeling in the groove. And though that certainly isn't the world's responsibility to keep us in the sweet spot, it is important to be aware of it, because you can help us out sometimes. Again, we need to own that as adults anyway. Young ones obviously need a lot more support, and we still need support as grown-ups. But being aware of it is a good thing, because as an educator, well, anybody, awareness is key, right? And as my dear friend Dr. Dave says, we can't do what we don't know, right? However, once we become aware, we become responsible. And that obviously can translate into all kinds of, big issues, global big issues. And it's also true in the classroom with learning differences. And so just being aware can really help us. And we're not saying that, educators need to be entertainers. We don't need to be entertainers. Although, that said, the sage on the stage, the old school way of lecturing is really pretty over, at least where I am. So, working a lot of things into the class is important. Humor and doing activities and moving around is really, really an important thing. And obviously, as we've spoken about before, we need to be aware of the interest-based nervous system, and hopefully, I'm on an anti-shame campaign, so try to, destigmatize that, unhinge the stigma about, oh, if you to be interested in something, you're like a 4-year-old, grow up, Peter Pan syndrome, whatever. It's not like that. We can't help it. We're walking around with the wiring we were born with, and that's how it is. So it's much better to be aware of it and embrace it. And for the Fast Mind Club student to, to communicate, just, communicate. It's very, very important, because and we're constantly looking for stimulation. Also for the educator, it's important not to take things personally if a student is looking bored. And I have students, and I praise them for this, I have students sometimes come up to me day one, or maybe it's day two when they get comfortable, day three at the most. Professor, I'm really sorry if I look bored or look checked out. I'm not. I have ADHD, and I come in and out. And I like that they're giving me the heads up. And we again, as adults, especially as professional adults, hopefully try not to take things personally, anyway. But when we understand that, we can also come back up with strategies to reel them in, and also to loosen up a bit. I mean, my classes sometimes partway through, if I can tell they're, especially the time of day, if they need a caffeine fix or whatever, we'll get up, we'll just stop what we're doing and do the hokey pokey, original version. It takes like 2.5 minutes. And then they got some bounce, they got some kick in their step. We sit back down and do whatever we're doing. It's great. Fast Mind Club or neurotypical, whatever. It puts smiles on. And also, I say no to cell phones. I have them turn them off and put them under their seats. And then I give them like a speech day one, that they're off because they've got a prescription to be here, so they can take in new things, which they're not going to be doing if the thing is buzzing constantly in their pocket. And I have an issue with leavings, which stops dramatically once the phone's under their chair, unless obviously they have to use the bathroom or get water or something. Class is only an hour and 15 minutes, and that is because the autistic crew or the ADHD crew, whoever, when somebody's getting up and down, that distracts. It's really distracting, and the class just isn't that long. It'd be different for 3 hours, but it isn't. And so once I explain that, I usually don't have an issue, because it can take a fast club member about 20 minutes to regroup from somebody getting up to check a text. So we squash that the first day. And usually once they get that, empathy happens. Once I say, you may not know, they're sitting next to you, you're not going to tell you they have ADHD or they're on the autism spectrum, and they just lost a third of their class that they're also paying a ton of money for. Even if it's loans later, you're paying for it one way or the other, and that just isn't fair. Plus, they authentically want to learn, and so the leaving thing and the tech thing is squashed that right away. That said, though, it's very good to loosen up again, the hokey pokey thing. And I tell my students at Champlain we have tables, and I have them in a semicircle. They're not tables like in the back, but they can sit on the tables. I don't care if they sit on the floor. I don't care if they stand up and do. A colleague of mine who came in and taught chair yoga. If they want to sit there and stretch, I don't care. I have students who sit there and color throughout the entire class. Go ahead, because that can really help with somebody with executive functioning issues. I have an issue with integrity stuff, again, with phones being on and leaving unnecessarily, but I have no issues at all with them standing up and doing yoga poses and coloring, because if that's what helps them to be successful, good. And the Fast Club members need to move again. So sometimes I do a little Okinawan breathing exercise in the beginning. It's about a minute long. I start each and every one of my classes with mindfulness anyway, because this helps to clear out the working memory, which, if you know about executive functioning, the working memory being as clear as possible is huge. Because remember, the executive functioning, right behind the forehead, basically, it's the important stuff. Planning, reasoning, decision-making, judgment-making, just all the big metacognition stuff. So when the working memory is cleared out before class, that is true for 5-year-olds. Actually, go down to pre-K even. There are all kinds of activities for like 3 on up through college. I actually use the ones for little kids with my students. Sitting Still Like a Frog by Elaine Snell is a great one, actually. Just a minute, just 1 minute. And then sometimes they're like 3 minutes, but even 1 is a great start. Again, stand up during class, the hokey pokey. I do other movement exercises in there too. We're talking about the movement ones like 2 to 3 minutes, and so if you think, 3 minutes, I'm taking that out of class. If you weigh that against everything that's not going into their heads because they're anxious or sleepy or need caffeine, like you're blowing the next 30 minutes. So if you look at it that way, you kind of regained 27 minutes, right? Minus the 3, and really, if you include those, because they're happy when they do it, you've salvaged life minutes, and they're excited about learning. Also, those of us in the Fast Mind Club, I can't say all of us, because we're obviously neurotypicals or fast minders or autistic or whatever. It all wears a different face. Myself, and I know many others in the Fast Mind Club, just don't relax that way anyway. Sitting is just overrated. I don't sit when I teach. In fact, for 11 years, actually, there was one class I came back at a minor medical procedure, and I still went to class. Probably not the smartest thing, but I did. And I just sat down so I could teach them. And I didn't look different, I don't think. It wasn't a huge big deal. But students were worried about me because I sat down on the stool. It's kind of funny. And I'm more focused when I'm moving. I'm more relaxed. I'm more focused. I'm more in the groove. And that's true for many of us. So if you can loosen up and let students move around or include the whole class in it, if they're little kids, that's just all the better. And then lastly, we need to lead the way. I mean, kind of obvious, but whether you teach the little ones or all the way through the college level, we need to lead the way and by example, even with the young adults, because we need to model that learning is fun. We need to be playful. Adults can get so blah. Like whoever said when there's like this brick wall between childhood and adulthood, and now you're no longer allowed to have fun or play, or it's just all so ridiculous. So when we model that learning is fun and we can play and humor, and I forget who did the work on this, I want to say his last name is Schmidt. When we add humor to anything we're doing, obviously there are some things that will never be funny, such as the Holocaust. Most things we can add humor to, and our memory for whatever it is we're talking about goes up huge. It goes up huge. And I use a lot of humor and fun things in my classes, and it makes for a really great, less intense atmosphere. Yeah, so I was going to say anti-red pen. I realize most of the grading is done online right now, except for me. I like old school because I love to read what my students write. So I sit there on the couch with a glass of red wine and Giovanni, the golden retriever, and enjoy it tremendously, with the exception of this last couple of years with the Rhone. I still enjoy what they wrote. I just prefer to have it old school. And I use purple pens. I use purple, sometimes shades of blue, indigo, and this way it doesn't have that red shame attachment. Okay, so that was basically it. Those are some tips for educators on how to educate and help and work with the executive functioning differences of the ADHD or the Fast Mind Club member. This is Kimberly Quinn signing off from Northern Vermont. Have a mindful day.